working tirelessly to provide us with results this morning. We have been able to positively identify the deceased, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Tim McConnell to just walk us through not only our findings, but even as we move from rescue to possibly recovery at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the Mayor said, yesterday we made y'all aware that we were able to go in and take some samples and trying to determine through DNA technology what those were. One was a fluid sample in a collapsed area up on the 8th floor, where you see the 18th through the 8th floor all collapsed on that deck up there. The fluid we collected from that was not human, so there's no search, there's no, that test ended there. The other sample we collected was from the person that was a known deceased on the first day that we found up, who had originally been on the 11th floor, but was involved in what we call a pancake collapse, where all the upper floors above that, the 7 floors above that, all collapsed. We did manage to gather through some pretty strenuous effort of the firefighters on the USAR team, firefighters and EMS individuals on USAR, some DNA, and that was positively matched today through the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office with the decedent from Saturday morning. So that leaves us with one individual who is missing. We are pushing 4 days in, folks. We have not had a live hit since Sunday morning from any of the dogs. We sweep the building every day, several times a day, concentrating where they find individuals. We're over 72 hours now without a live hit. At this point, we are very close to transitioning from what we call rescue, that you've heard us talk about every day, rescue mode, to recovery. That obviously changes a bunch of things. It changes the risk that our first responders take, going from, you'll say you'll risk a life to save a life. You can't say the same for a recovery. But I want to assure everyone we will take every action to recover the remains for these families. The individual who's still missing, the area where we believe him to be through eyewitness, testimony, people who saw him on the top floor and where he was, is exactly where our cadaver dogs continue to get hits repeatedly. They have tried using technology. They have been successful using technology to get in void spaces, but we have not been able to find any human, any signs of human in there, other than the hits from the dogs, which are pretty concrete proof that we have someone in that area. And then there are just the obvious signs that any human would detect themselves being around someone who had been deceased for 4 days. They have gone through the building with live and cadaver search dogs today, top to bottom, and we're talking everywhere that they can possibly get, elevator shafts, stairwells, and searched repeatedly. They've cleared that building. We will do that again today, before the end of the day. But and we have communicated that to the family of the one individual who's still missing. We will probably be transitioning from rescue to recovery no later than tomorrow morning, possibly this evening after that last search. If we have no more signs, and given the nature of this collapse, this many days out, I hate to say statistics because I don't want to, there's always numbers thrown around, but the odds of survival are, I would say, 0 if we don't get a hit of any indications of a live person by tonight. So we'll probably be transitioning to recovery mode. What you're going to see happening today is a lot of activity from our engineers and our contractors on the scene, trying to get a little bit more exploration on this building as to where do we go from here. We're in the process of moving some equipment so they'll be able to get up and look at those towers very closely. As dangerous as we believe it to be, you have to take some next steps. We're going to be putting engineers up in some baskets to get firsthand right close to those towers and determine where they're damaged most and what it's going to take to bring them down in a safest manner possible and still honor the recovery of these individuals. So if we can bring those down without damaging the structure anymore is our goal. So then we could begin to pick through debris where we know these two individuals, where we know one to be and the other is pretty much 99% we believe him to be able to pick through that debris and get to them and give these families some closure.
And I'm going to ask Colin Arnold, our Director of Homeland Security, to give us an update as well.
So First off, we worked with the Federal Aviation Administration and established a temporary flight restriction over this site. We've noticed some drone activity and a lot of aviation activity that we're not comfortable with, and the FAA was good enough to assist us with that. It's a half-mile radius around this site up to 1,000 feet. It does not affect either Lakefront or New Orleans International Airport's flight path, and there is an exception for any work public safety-wise involving this, and of course the hospitals. There is an exception for them to get in, and they know about that. So that is one development. The larger development, obviously, and something we're following very closely, is this potential tropical system that is in the Gulf right now. They've upped it now to 50%. The National Weather Service, we're in constant contact with them. It's still looking to be potentially a tropical depression. We've been told that, potentially 1 to 2 inches of rain and winds in the 20 to 25 to 30 mile an hour range are possible if this develops further and comes towards our area. The modeling right now has it coming a little bit east, but you know how the models are, they shift and fluctuate throughout the day. We'll obviously continue to watch this, but I would say that this has certainly developed a sense of urgency with the engineering team when we started talking about this last night, about what to do about the cranes. And so that's really the development. You can keep up with us at NOLA Ready on social media. You can go to ready.nola.gov or text your zip code to 888-777.
We will be prepared to give you an additional update as we have at 5 p.m. Later on today. Prior to that, Dr. Begmore, you want to give an update?
This is a difficult day. It has been a difficult week, and we have more difficult days ahead. And so we're asking everyone to keep families, first responders, in their prayers and in their thoughts. But we also want to reiterate that we have resources on the ground. We have, again, our on-site crisis counselors and mental health professionals who are here at the scene to assist with whatever folks who are working and have been here for very long hours doing very difficult work. We also, at the New Orleans Public Library main branch, just down the street on Loyola and Tulane, have between 10 and 6 every day, at least through the weekend, and if we need it further, we'll activate it. What we're calling a resource center. We will have mental health counselors on site. We will also have a Spanish language interpreter for anyone who might need those services with a mental health counselor, who are able to care for anyone who walks in, whether you or a loved one or a friend were affected by this, or you just need to talk to someone. That is available for you. Starting tomorrow, we will be co-locating our business resource services there as well, so that folks who have been affected in a business sense by this can get help at the same place. Regardless, you can always call the Metropolitan Crisis Line, 826-2675, if you can't get to the library or you feel you might need immediate help. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we are working with the State Department of Workforce and Labor as it relates to unemployment benefits that could be available to employees that are who are not working a job right now as they're in the impact area. And so with that, we'll take questions at this time.
WDSU?
So can you talk a little bit more about how the wind could affect the cranes? You said one of them moved slightly yesterday. Has there been any more movement?
Yes, we actually had a little bit more movement this morning. The engineers are monitoring it. Once again, they're using some pretty sophisticated equipment called the Transit. It's digital, and it lets them know when that crane moves. Obviously, we want to keep people out that zone. So from the beginning, we've been saying how dangerous this is, and it still is a concern. In the engineering world, it's called wind load. And it's on buildings too. As they design buildings, they got to be designed to take the wind, and you get different wind in different parts of the country. Here, these cranes were not designed. They're designed to take the wind load anticipated without being damaged. Anytime you're calculating that, it's as designed. These are not as they were designed anymore. So the wind load is a huge factor. It does add some urgency to our mitigating the risk of them collapsing on their own. And so we're looking at how do we go about doing that, and the engineers have to get closer, and they've asked us to help them do that. So this is one of those measured risk things. So we're going to put them up in some buckets, sometime today, hopefully. Once again, weather permitting, and get them to get a close look so they can have a better idea on how we mitigate this.
Fox 8.
Kind of on that same train of thought, has there been any discussion, or is it possible at all to do any kind of controlled, bringing it down in a controlled way?
Absolutely. We would not bring it down in any uncontrolled manner, not voluntarily. And that's the idea of the wind load. That's what we're trying to prevent. And so that's what they're getting up there to assess is how do you bring it down in a controlled manner. And that we'll hopefully have some more news when they're finished their assessment today. And I will tell you, we're on a very short time to try and get a lot done. Our goal by the end of the day is to have enough information to be able to make a decision on how that happens. And so you'll see two of these top engineers we keep talking about. Both of these individuals have experience at Ground Zero. One has experience at Oklahoma City. These guys have done a lot of this stuff, and that's who is going to be up in your bucket helping us make this decision.
The Advocate, and then WWL.
Could you tell us about some of the options you're considering for controlled demolition? Could that include explosives?
It's one of the things they've talked about, and there's a lot of different options. Are there ways to weaken it and pull it down? Are there ways to, as you talked about, using some kind of explosive stuff? They've done a lot of stuff. They haven't done one in the French Quarter in New Orleans. And so, as you know, we have a lot of underground drainage here that you wouldn't find any other place. And so all those things are part of what factors into this. So we've complicated it for them, unfortunately, but I have full faith that they will do it properly and keep it within that zone. It's the orders we've given them. Our objective is to bring this down and keep it within the footprint of that facility, or as near as possible to that.
And that's the whole purpose of this next phase of assessments that we will be doing that will influence the next steps we take.
Yeah.
This is actually for Colin. Just a quick question for you. Yesterday evening, you said y'all are kind of writing the book on this. And is that the city speak? Because admittedly, nothing like this has happened here, but is this also the national and international experts saying we just haven't seen something like this before?
We've been hearing a lot of that. We've been hearing a lot of, especially about, from crane people, that they've never seen a crane listed like that. It didn't fall. That's obviously concerning. Then you get the bad news the other day that the crane that we thought was, okay, probably all right, well, they come in and say, that might be worse. So they've dealt with these things before. If you've seen a large-scale demolition, that's the companies that are here that are doing that and that engineered that. So the right people are here. It's just, it's complicated, and it's complicated even more. What I'm saying is with the weather now too, and the potential forecast that's out there. So we have the words like improbable and just impossible. Thank you.
WDSU followed by WGNO.
Chief, we've seen some incredible strength, faith, hopefulness, resolve from family members who have not left this spot since Saturday morning. Could you tell us how you were able to break the news to them? First, that one of the families got the news they didn't want. Second, that we were nearing a 0% survival as the sun goes down. How were you able to deliver that message, and how are those family members doing right now?
It's never easy to deliver that news, but as we do everything here, we did it as a team. The mayor, myself, Chief Ferguson, went and spoke to them, and there's no easy way to tell somebody that. And I think everybody, if you've reached adulthood, you've faced tragedy such as this, you've lost a loved one, and so we went in and did it as gentle as possible. We've prepared them as the days were, just as we've communicated to you, we've prepared them as best as we could, and when we finally got the results yesterday, and obviously if I'm asking you for DNA, you would have some real bad news. And so they faced a lot of strength. We had a lot of faith, leaders, and we had a ton of counselors, thanks to the health department, by our side, and that helped. So it's just not easy.
Well, and making sure that we have just been consistent in our outreach and showing love and support to the families. And through that process, we've actually built trust with the families. They matter to us. And their loved ones who are still stuck in that building, they matter. And we're going to do everything that we can to ensure that we retrieve their bodies with dignity and respect, while we also have to deal with the existing conditions that we're faced with. So Thank you for the question.
Just dead on. Transparency from the very start with about what the odds were.
Anyone else? Thank you all.
Thank you all so much.